Good day, students. In this new series, I will attempt to give you an overview of the worth of each unit's eidolons and my recommendations for whether they are worth the Stellar Jade's investment or not. Since they have released quite a few banger units in quick succession, going on a vertical investment on your account might be detrimental. But even so, for those of you who already have an established roster of units and are looking to improve it, this will be a series to watch. Let us start today with the abundance cast of the game, but before we do that, some quick disclaimers. Please note that these recommendations are based on my personal experience with the units, how they perform at E0, and what they lack in their base form. As such, I have formulated this guide based on the importance of each eidolon in fixing a particular unit problem from its base kit. This guide is highly subjected to subjectivity on my end, even though I have tried to keep it as objective as possible. Therefore, if you feel a certain eidolon works better for you compared to what I am about to mention, that is entirely your prerogative, and each and every one of you is entitled to play the game as you want. Therefore, do not feel pressured into getting a particular one just because I mentioned it is hotter than this summer's biggest hit. As always, every piece of content in this game can be fully cleared with E0 units without issue. I will go briefly on each unit's strengths and main weaknesses in the next section, so you will better understand the analysis of each eidolon in the following section. Also, each eidolon will be analyzed, considering you already had the previous eidolon and are debating the investment needed to secure the one in question as well. This is why you will see some units have their E1 not recommended, but their E2 recommended. And before I forget, I will not go over the E3 and E5 eidolons of the units, because these are just extra levels for all your abilities on each unit. And of course, all of them are worth getting because they are just straight-up damage buffs for each of the units. I will just leave you with a note on which unit, where it is applicable, so you can know which one of the two will provide the most damage. Let's also go on what you should be looking for units on this path. For abundance units, you want to aim for the eidolons, which will provide your unit with additional ways of buffing your team, or which will add a cleanse to their kit if it is missing in the base kit. Also, eidolons that provide you with energy are always great, so you can smooth out your rotation. Gallagher. A more offensive type of healer, he focuses more on dealing damage while also providing healing to your allies based on fixed amounts. Lacks a cleanse in his base form, also most of his heal is tied to its talent and ultimate, therefore he struggles a bit to solo sustain. Lynx. AoE cleanse through her ultimate use and solid healing with a combination of burst healing as well as continuous healing. Most of her buffs are limited to only preservation or destruction units, as they are the only ones affected by her survival response effect. Natasha. On-demand cleansing provided by her skill also has a combination of burst and continuous healing. She wants to use the skill as much as possible, but struggles to be the solo sustainer of the team due to the lower numbers of her kit and the increase in skill point usage. Bailu. Great healing numbers, as all of her abilities can be blasted to multiple members of the team, only one with a revive effect in her base kit. Lacks a cleanse, which is crucial for most endgame encounters these days. Huohuo. Great heals, a good damage increase from her ultimate, as well as a valuable energy gain from it, make her the premier abundance for damage increase. Not that great skill point economy in her base form, as she wants to use her skill every 2 turns to keep up with her talent. Luocha. Entirely skill point positive, amazing amount of heals for both single target and for the entire team, on demand cleanse as well as the only AoE buff strip present in the game, making the go-to choice against enemies with revive. Scales with attack, which makes his build a bit more restrictive, especially in the LC department, and also has no means of team buffing in his base form. E1. a flat energy gain at the start of the battle, coupled with a sizable effect res buff for himself. As he needs to cycle his ultimate as often as possible to get access to a good portion of his heals, this one is a good pickup, especially so you can reach his ultimate in the first turns. E2 provides him with the needed cleanse, which is now tied to his skill, making it on demand, and also comes with a nice effect resistance for the target of the skill. Great pickup, as it solves one of his biggest weaknesses. E4. Increase the duration of the besotted effect of his ultimate, which improves his healing uptime by increasing the talent healing, taking care of another one of his weaknesses. Also a good pickup. E6. This one is more focused on his damage dealing with his kit, but you will also get a healing increase from it as its trace turns break effect into outgoing healing. The additional weakness break efficiency will also increase his damage, as the fire break has quite a decent multiplier, and since he will stack quite a lot of break effect when he gets to break, his damage will be nothing to sneeze at. Decent pickup if you are looking to boost his damage, but not recommended if you only look to have him focused on healing more. E1. Her E1 is a good increase in her healing capabilities, especially for low health targets, although because it has the activation requirement of allies being under 50% HP, it does have the risk of not activating if you are in a difficult encounter and one of your allies gets one shot from 60% HP. A decent pickup. E2. An added bonus if you pair her with a preservation or destruction unit, but considering this restriction is quite limited, and considering it is also applicable for one debuff, it is not worth it. You can look at it as more of a nice bonus, which most of the time you won't even notice. E4. A decent attack buff for your destruction unit while her skill effect is active. All in all is a decent damage buff which should have permanent uptime. Also a decent pickup. E6. The final buffs provided for either your destruction or preservation ally are quite good, as the effect resistance can always come in handy, and the increase in survivability is also great, especially if your unit is scaling out of max HP. Definitely a recommended pickup if given the chance. E1. Decent self-healing, although it applies only once per battle, and it also has the chance to not activate if you are at 31% or higher and you get one shot from an enemy attack. Not worth picking up. E2. While at first glance it appears like a good increase in her healing capabilities, it has the same HP requirement as her E1. Therefore, if your allies get hit and die from 31%, this will also not activate. Also not recommended. E4. Decent pickup as it will allow you to cycle your ultimate faster, which she desperately needs in order to be able to sustain, especially paired with an ERR rope. E6. For whatever reason, they gave her a basic attack damage increase. Well, if you want to build a basic attack breaker DPS Natasha, this is the constellation for you. Otherwise, it is definitely not recommended. E1. A decent amount of energy provided for an ally, although it comes with an activation requirement which is difficult to maintain in most of the cases, as by the time the invigorations ends, your character will not be at max HP, unless you speed tune your team, do a Bailu skill before it expires, and you hope you get the heal bounces on the right targets. Not recommended. E2. Decent healing increases, but Bailu's healing should already be enough to keep your team alive even without it. Not recommended as well. E4. A potential 30% damage increase if you get lucky with the bounces for your carry, but it will be a 20% for one unit, 10% for another one most of the time. The RNG involved in it also makes this one not recommended. E6. Increases the revive cap by 1. While this increases the safety of your net, if you need to have 2 revives per battle to clear the content, you are most certainly incorrectly building your team. It is not recommended as well, as the base revive from her E0 should be more than enough. E1 increases the duration of her talent by 1 turn, fixing her rotation from having to use her skill every 2 turns to 3 turns, making her skill point positive in the process. It also provides a 12% speed buff for your team, which has a permanent uptime. Great pickup. E2. Basically, Bailu's revive mechanic, but with 2 activations per battle. In most cases, it will not activate as the base healing is more than enough. Therefore, while a decent safety net, it's not recommended. E4. More healing for low HP allies. This one, like her E2, is also not needed as she can sustain the team just fine with her base numbers from E0. Not recommended. E6. Massive damage buff for potentially the entire team with no requirement other than the target being healed, which should be almost permanently through her talent. Great pickup. E1. A good attack buff with great uptime as it is tied to its field duration, which will not only benefit your damage dealers, but also himself by increasing his heals. Good pickup. E2. More survivability for the skill target by either increasing the healing received if under 50% HP or providing a shield if above 50%. While both versions are good on paper, the amount of heals he provides at the base form makes this one kind of pointless. Not recommended. E4. An interesting debuff. By making enemies do less damage, it will practically mean your team will receive 12% damage reduction while his field is active. Just like his E2 though, his base heal is more than enough to keep your team alive, so this one is also not recommended. E6. Amazing damage increase buff, as you will reduce the enemy's resistance by 20% for 2 turns with a guaranteed chance. Great pickup, as the resistance reduction buff is one of the rarest buffs of damage increase present in the game. And that's all the current available abundance units Eidolons reviewed. Hopefully, you now have a better understanding of the strengths and weaknesses of each unit and can start planning ahead for which one of them to target when they rerun or when they will spook you after a 50-50 loss. So, what is your plan? Are you planning on starting to vertically invest in your abundance units? And if so, how far are you planning to go, or how far have you already gotten? Let me know in the comments below. And until next time, I am Professor Veritas Ratio, and remember, stay smart and sexy.